everyone, Mookie here. Some people were a little confused about the T7 malfunction, so I wanted to discuss in detail how the MP7 trigger mechanism works and the issues that we had with ours. I'll use crude drawings and video game graphics to stay within YouTube's policies. For the record, this is a Let's Play video game channel, and today we're playing World of Guns. Since this video will be longer, I will include timestamps, so feel free to skip to the relevant parts if you don't care about the fanboy drama. First, I want to clarify that I have no ill will towards Tommy. I've always liked his GSG G36 builds. I mean, I did buy 2 of them, including a factory Tommy Built post-sample machine gun. Despite some people saying these guns would fall apart, they've never given me any issues. That's why I got up early on release day, spammed the refresh button, and eagerly spent $3,500 on the T7. Although it had problems, I trust Tommy will fix it, and we will update you on his findings later. It's important to note that some Tommy fanboys have been bullying anyone who posts online about issues with their T7. Their aggression has deterred many from sharing their problems publicly. We've received private messages and calls from people about their T7 issues, but they fear posting publicly due to potential attacks from these fanboys. While the fanboys are annoying, Tommy himself has been great. I recommend contacting him for support, as it has been very helpful. As a first-gen product, from a reverse-engineered design, some issues are understandable on the first run. It should be noted that GSG is no longer making the parts for Tommy like they were for the TG36 and UMP builds. So he is working with new suppliers on these parts, and I'm sure there may be some kinks they need to sort out. However, many of us are disappointed after spending so much money on a gun that needs extensive break-in, especially with frequent stoppages. I don't mind taking the heat from the fanboys. I have no personal stake in this. I just wanted one of my favorite guns from Insurgency's Sandstorm, and was sad when it had major issues. Let the fanboys hate. Secondly, I've gained a lot of new subscribers and wanted to answer some of your questions. I didn't anticipate the channel doubling in subscribers overnight. I was just planning to make a little comeback to my old subscribers with a new gun that I was excited about, and to tell them about the gun business I've been a part of over the last couple of years. I used to have gun build videos and the like on here in the past, but YouTube doesn't like that kind of content these days. To answer some new people questions, first about the mask. No, I am not a leftist extremist Antifa. Similar to some other gun channels like PSR or Admin, the mask was part of my semi-anonymous persona from a decade ago, which my original followers will remember well. There's nothing political about the masks. It's a free country, so the mask stays on. I'm here to make politics-free gun content. I'm a small woman with small hands, and I have a busy life, so my videos aren't going to be all super high-speed, low-drag operator type, but just having fun with guns. Now, let's explain what happened with the T7. While filming, the firearm had issues like failures to feed, failures to eject, double feeds, and hammer follow. We had 1,000 rounds ready to go for breaking in the gun or making adjustments, but it continued to have issues every few rounds. We had a couple people try the firearm, and even tried using a sling to stabilize the gun, but it continued to have issues. We stopped filming, took it back to our shop, ensured it had proper gas flow, lubed it, and planned on shooting the gun enough times to hopefully break it in. Like we mentioned on the last video, others on the HK Pro forum were stating that the firearm started working properly after they broke the firearm in, either by shooting it suppressed or by shooting several hundred rounds through the firearm. However, when we were attempting to break in the firearm, we cleared a malfunction, and while attempting to chamber the next round, the firearm discharged upon the bolt closing. At this point, we stopped everything as we felt the gun was not safe to use. After disassembling the gun, we had some speculations on how this likely happened, which we'll explain next. I'll try to explain this as simple as possible for those unfamiliar with this type of trigger pack. The MP7 has a removable hammer pack that uses a trigger linkage. However, unlike other removable hammer packs, like the P90 or the AUG, which use a bar to push back on the mechanism to release the hammer, the MP7 has a trigger link that pulls forward on a disconnector that releases the hammer from a forward sear cut. The trigger on a traditional semi-auto firearm typically has a trigger hook that retains the hammer till the trigger is pulled. During cycling, a disconnector will catch the hammer, forcing the operator to release the trigger, thus resetting the hammer to the trigger hook. The MP7 simplifies the hammer design with a singular sear cut in the front of the hammer, which is used for both the disconnector catch and the trigger hook. On the military versions, this sear cut also interfaces with the safety sear. The disconnector on this firearm has two hooks, effectively functioning as both the trigger hook and disconnector hook, depending on the fire mode. In semi-auto, the upper part acts like a trigger hook, and the lower part as the disconnector hook. When the trigger is pulled, the trigger bar pulls on the upper part of the disconnector hook, releasing the hammer. During cycling, the bolt carrier pushes down on the trigger bar, down to the second hook, which re-engages the disconnector onto the hammer. The operator must then reset the trigger to shoot the next round. In other military select fire guns, the disconnector is pulled back so that only the safety sear engages the hammer, and on release of the trigger hook catches the hammer. However, on the MP7, changing the fire mode allows the trigger bar to pull farther away from the hammer, keeping the disconnector disengaged from the hammer, which allows for the hammer to be retained only by the safety sear. Due to the way the disconnector mechanism works, if a part is out of spec, it may be possible for the trigger to pull the disconnector back far enough that it doesn't allow the disconnector to engage the hammer during the reset process, and may be a potential source for problems. The T7, for legal reasons set by the ATF, lacks this safety sear. This means that during cycling, if slight pressure is applied to the trigger during reset, the disconnector might not hold back the hammer, leading to hammer follow. While this is true for just about every semi-auto gun without a safety sear, we found on the T7 that if you retained the slightest amount of pressure on the trigger while the bolt is moving forward, it was possible for the disconnector to no longer hold back the sear. This is speculation, but it may be that people experiencing dead triggers could happen if one were still putting slight pressure on the trigger during cycling, or perhaps recoil, especially on a gun without a stock, could bump the finger, causing it to prematurely put pressure on the trigger during cycling, resulting in hammer follow. We found that quick trigger release was necessary for reliable resetting. This wouldn't be an issue in select fire guns, where the safety sear would hold the hammer back, forcing a full reset before the next shot. Our speculation is that an out-of-spec part may make it more likely for dead triggers when one isn't being very deliberate with their trigger movement, but we will see what Tommy has to say. Short cycling caused failures to feed, eject, and double feeds. As we mentioned previously, it seems these can usually be fixed by shooting a few hundred rounds or using a suppressor, but having stoppages every few rounds made this a frustrating task. But finally, we do have the issue where the T7 fired when the bolt was released. And this one, I speculate, is most likely due to the fact that the hammer pack is being retained by a takedown pin. Without a safety sear to hold the hammer in place, the hammer will fall forward if one were to simply move the pack slightly rearward in the receiver. This is due to the fact that the disconnector is being retained in place by the trigger bar, and rearward movement of the tray causes the disconnector to pull away from the hammer, releasing it even if the safety is on. This is evident when one disassembles the firearm as well, as the hammer falls forward once the carrier is pulled out. It seemed evident there had been a lot of hand fitting on our gun. It was clear the tray for the hammer pack had been hand filed, and it appears the holes for the retaining pins had been reamed, and machine work had been performed for the bolt clearance on the back plate after the parts had been painted. As such, the takedown pins were very loose in the rear, to the point where the pins would fall out just from regular use. Due to the lack of a safety sear, if the lower retaining pin walks out during shooting, this could give the hammer pack enough rearward movement to release the hammer from the disconnector. I know of another MP7 project where they are designing the hammer pack to interlock into the receiver in order to prevent anything like this. And no, it is not the PSA project. I'm sure Tommy will be able to figure it out, and we will make a follow-up video when that time comes. As for now, we get to be your beta testers. Thanks for sticking around to the end of the video. If you want to see more content like this in the future, make sure to subscribe. And if you want to support the channel, feel free to check out our web store, Tracks and Armaments, where we have a variety of products available for purchase. See you later!